Hello, can I get a good sound check?
Sound good, Jeffrey.
Thank you. And you can see the slides on the screen still?
Yes, sir.
Will wonders ever cease? All right. Well, I think it is about 3:45 on the East Coast. So with that, I'm going to welcome you all to our third and final National STIC Network Showcase. My name, once again, is Jeff Zaharowitz, and I am the Director of the Accelerating Innovation Program team here at Federal Highway Administration. And I've been looking forward to this event all week long because we have another great group of panelists to share some great stories with you about their particular journeys in adopting innovation. And of course, the theme of today is growing an inclusive workforce. So before we begin, I hope you all have enjoyed your time with us in Summit land here, Summitville. During the next session, please remain on mute during the presentations if you could. If you need to view the closed captioning, please click down the bottom where you see the CC sign. For the panelists, please enter questions in the chat pod. And if you want to see the speakers as they come on with the presentation, please click the set side-by-side speaker to best see the speaker alongside the presentation. All right, again, we're here at the National STIC Network Showcase. Thank you all for contributing to the success of the STIC Network Innovation Showcase. We have sort of a two-prong goal with this particular event in the summit. Number one, we really want to provide a resource that you can refer to down the road. A good example of that would be you see something here or you've seen a poster that might draw your attention. 6 months from now, you might be sitting at your desk wondering, oh boy, I got a new challenge here. I have a new problem. How am I going to go about addressing it? And you might recall something you've seen in our showcase, either a presenter or a great poster. We would love it if you told us that story, that something we talked about here helped you solve a problem down the road. So providing that resource is number one. Number two is really giving you, the National STIC Network, an opportunity to take a bow for all the great work you've been doing over the past several years. And I've referred to the STIC Network a couple times already here. Network is a noun, but it's also a verb, right? And in that case, I want you to take the opportunity to jot down a name or a contact person that you've seen or heard about and reach out to them after the summit concludes today. Build a relationship or a connection with someone who might be able to help you out in the future. And likewise, you might be able to help them out in the future. So the network is still what it's all about. So once again, I'm going to thank you for submissions. And with the inclusive workforce theme today, we're going to have some great stories to share. We're going to start with Washington, a consortium of folks from Pennsylvania and New Jersey talking about virtual public involvement. And then from Missouri DOT will be our first three speakers. We'll take a little bit of a break for questions, have a second batch of presentations from Iowa and Kent MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization in Delaware, and then wrap it up with the North Carolina Department of Transportation. So yes, there's an inclusive workforce theme throughout these 6 presentations. And I think I'm also leaning a little bit more into the inclusivity, if you will, of transportation. So not only about our current and future workforce, but for the folks who we serve each and every day, the traveling public, our folks who are pedestrians and bicyclists and so forth, and the folks who are interested in the projects we're developing and delivering. So I'm being as inclusive as I can with the phrase inclusive, if you will. All right, so that is enough for my talk. Take a couple more seconds to see a disclaimer that you've probably seen a few times here over the week. Thank you for reading through that real quickly. And our first presentation is from Jackie Bain with the Washington State DOT. Welcome aboard.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Hi, yes, I'm Jackie Bain, Deputy Director at the Office of Equity and Civil Rights at the Washington State Department of Transportation. I'm really glad and excited to be able to speak with you today about some of the really new and innovative things we've been doing relative to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging at the Washington State Department of Transportation. Next slide, please. So our strategic plan, the most recent version, was launched in 2012, and our previous plan included 3 areas: practical solutions, workforce development, and inclusion. And rather than completely relaunch it, we have modified our new strategic plan to be diversity, equity, and inclusion, workforce development, and resiliency. So next slide, please. And within our DEI strategic plan goal area, we have 6 different emphasis areas that we're focusing on agency-wide. So this isn't just about what our office is doing, but it's about what each and every person is doing throughout the agency. So we're working to embed DEI throughout the employee experience, enhance our agency's diversity advisory groups. We currently have 8 that are very active, but how can we support those more? We're developing guidelines and decision-making centered on our values, and we're striving to be a trusted partner and understand the needs of the community through enhanced community engagement. We're creating good policy and sound, equitable investment strategies, and we're continuing to enhance our contracting opportunities for underrepresented businesses. Next slide, please. So in 2021, Secretary Millar requested that we publish or create Executive Order 2201, which is the agency's executive order on anti-racism policy, as well as diversity, equity, and inclusion planning. So this executive order outlined how we were going to go about creating an agency-wide diversity, equity, and inclusion plan. And if you see that graphic on the right, it covers all the areas that our DEI plan includes. So it's our advisory work groups, our internal workforce, our external workforce and contracting, the HEAL Act, Healthy Environment for All, community engagement, helping our staff and team members learn and grow, and then making data-informed decisions. So to get there, we conducted a comprehensive baseline assessment of our demographic data and hosted agency-wide internal and external listening session. And all of this really helped us learn more about what we needed to do to everyone feel like we had a culture of belonging, and they enjoy working with us. So next slide, please. And while we've made progress under Secretary Millar's leadership with his renewed commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, we're seeing positive changes in the recruitment and retention of diverse individuals. We are requiring more diverse interview panels, anti-bias training for staff participating in the interview process. All our interviews are virtual, and we're requiring increased competitive recruitments versus promotions, and more closely scrutinizing qualification to see if they're intentionally or unintentionally building barriers into our hiring process. And we're making great progress to ensure that our workforce is reflecting the communities we serve. So really proud of our partners in the Human Resources Department. And next slide, please. So we are continuing to work on our contracting equity programs. Like all other states, we have the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, and we have a voluntary state minority, women, small, and veterans business enterprise program. Our overall goal for our DBE program is 19%, and we're currently at 16.3 for last federal fiscal year, which is, I think, the highest we've ever been. So we're quite proud of ourselves there. And then our state participation, it is entirely voluntary due to Initiative 200, which was anti-affirmative action legislation passed in 1999. But regardless, we are moving to implement more and more measures to increase participation in that area. So we have developed a state-funded diversity roadmap, but that's a conversation for another day. So next slide, please. So we're also doing a lot of mentoring, and these are really, honestly, my favorite programs. So we have the Highway Construction and Maritime Trade Scholarships programs. We call them pre-apprenticeship support services programs, but they're very comparable and were developed and modeled after the federal on-the-job training support services program. So we have our on-the-job training support services program, and then we have our pre-apprenticeship support services program. We've started doing some really creative, fun things there. We were able to do Youth Direct in partnership with the Ironworkers, and that is where we're helping youth that have aged out of the foster care system and the juvenile justice system. So we're really seeing some good work there. And then we've recently partnered with Camp Hope in Eastern Washington to help the unhoused gain meaningful skills in the highway construction trade. So really proud of those programs. And we have been meeting, our leadership, I should say, has been meeting with the leadership of USDOT to talk about this program in a more broad aspect. And then next slide. So in 2001, our Governor Inslee signed the Healthy Environment for All Act into state law. And this HEAL Act, as we call it, is a historic step that's intended to address the disproportionate exposure of Black Americans, Indigenous people, and communities of color, along with low-income individuals, to the help address the adverse health incomes for those communities. And so we've been working on implementing the HEAL Act. It's like environmental justice, but for all of our state decision-making. And so we have a community engagement plan that's been drafted. We have a new website. It's incorporated into the strategic plan through the element of diversity, equity, inclusion. And there's going to be environmental impact statements and environmental assessments made on their decisions. So really, really happy to be almost there with that program. So I think next slide, please. And that's all I have. So if there's any questions.
Thank you, Jackie. Think of some good questions for Jackie as we head up towards the break in a few minutes. Our next, we have a two-parter coming up, and the first part is from Mr. Ted Ritter.
Jeffrey, thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. What's up? Hope you're all enjoying the conference so far. My name is Ted Ritter. I'm with the NJTPA. So let's get a few things down first. NJTPA is the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority. We're the federally authorized metropolitan planning organization for about 7 million people in 13 northern and central New Jersey counties. So it's a very diverse population, and also a lot of different place types crammed into a fairly small geographic area. So we're very psyched to be on this session, co-presenting with our colleagues at DVRPC and also all the other great co-presenters here today. So we look forward to an opportunity to talk about not only the NJTPA's work, but our innovative public involvement efforts and how it informs our long-range planning. So the NJTPA board's job is to prioritize about $2 billion annually in federal surface transportation funding. So it's a fairly tall order. Let's go to the next slide, please. All right, so after the award-winning public engagement work that we did for the previous NJTPA long-range plan, by the way, I'm sorry I talk fast. I'm from New Jersey, but right before the session, I ate like 20 leftover Hershey Kisses. So now I'm like, a 10-year-old at a slumber party. I'm barely sitting in my seat here. Anyway, so we did all this innovative public outreach work for our last plan, our last long-range plan. And this time, it was a super duper challenge because we had to pivot 100% virtual. This is during the pandemic. Like all of us, we had to adjust. And we wanted to do a lot of innovative things, and we weren't sure how that was going to play virtually. We wanted to be inclusive and capture as much of the region as we possibly could. So this one page here, hopefully it translates okay. I can always shoot this via email to anybody who wants to see it after. But we reached basically more than 3 million people in total in one way or another. But the more accurate figure I think to use is the total engagement figure. So that's like 33,000 direct engagements, super direct personal engagements between a survey, 23 public meetings, our popular series called TPA Tuesdays. It was a bunch of symposiums we did, and then a full court press on social media. And yes, we did use paid social media as well. Next slide, please. So out of all that, I think really the highlight was our virtual multimedia kids contest that won an American Planning Association award here in New Jersey for outstanding community engagement. Pretty cool that a virtual contest won an outstanding community engagement award. And I think that speaks to how this was put together and also a lot of the results that we got, which is, directly attributable to the kids in our region. We got 160 kids to submit original artwork, essays, poetry, videos. Even my favorite was an adorable puppet show that was done. Really cool stuff. And they showed us through all these different ways what they think the future of transportation is going to be like in our region, say like when they're grown up. And I got to say that in this crazy day and age, this was, again, during the pandemic, and since then it's even gotten crazier, balloons and all politics and everything else. It was really enlightening and uplifting to hear from kids about what they think the transportation future is going to look like, a better future that's safer, more accessible, more equitable, more sustainable, that factors in trends like micromobility. And of course, since we're talking to kids, a lot of the focus was on technology, and they are not afraid to think big. And it was really cool. So even though they had great ideas, you see those personal transportation pods there at the right on this slide, even though it seems like a really far out idea, it really did capture the same themes that we heard from adults in the region, from all walks of life, from all locations, from all nationalities and backgrounds. They're all talking about the same things. We need to get around more efficiently, more equitably, safer, more sustainable. Really, really interesting to see the parallels just kind of spoken in a different way. Okay, next, and I think final slide here. Again, I told you I talk fast, right? So if I could give you one, because they only give me 3 minutes, you see, so I got to cram it all in. So if I could give you one takeaway from this whole thing, this whole talk, it would be our Engage database. This is our Engage public involvement database. So what we basically did, took like a couple of hundred public outreach innovations, and we compiled them in one easy to reach place. You can customize your search through this and match up national best practices and the NJTPA's own success stories, so you can plan out your next public involvement project. So I didn't mention regarding the kids contest, that's on our website at njtpa.org/engage. And then our Engage database too. Again, it's searchable, customizable, and I encourage you to check it out. So afterward, always hit me up via social media or on our website. I'm happy to collaborate, talk to you about what we're doing, and hopefully get some great ideas from you, because I think the overall goal here is to try to bring more people to the transportation planning process. And that's what we're all about. So it was nice meeting you all virtually, and look forward to connecting and answering questions later. Thanks.
Call Ted sometime. We'll give him more than 3 minutes. I promise you, Ted, and save the rest of your Valentine's Day candy for tomorrow. All right, Jackie Davis, you are up.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name's Jackie Davis. I'm the manager of the Office of Long Range Planning at DVRPC, the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. We are the federally designated Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, for the Greater Philadelphia region. And as an MPO, DVRPC is required to produce a long-range plan every 4 years that sets a regional vision for the future. And as part of this process, we conduct a scenario planning exercise to inform the plan. And I wanted to talk about the outreach for this most recent scenario planning exercise a bit today. Thank you. So exploratory scenario planning, the type of scenario planning we do at DVRPC, allows us to better understand how different trends and forces may shape our region's future by creating and exploring stories about alternate futures that could emerge, so that we can then plan for everything that happens in between those very disparate scenarios. Next slide. DVRPC's Futures Working Group helps us to conduct this exercise. They are a collaborative, transdisciplinary group of subject matter experts and other interested stakeholders from throughout the region. And we convene them to talk through trends and forces and changes in the future. And we reported on our last exercise in this report pictured here called Dispatches from Alternate Futures, just as COVID-19 hit the US. Slide. And since the last plan was developed over the pandemic, we had to quickly pivot, and virtual outreach and engagement was incredibly successful for us. So we wanted to offer virtual outreach and access during this plan update, even though we're able to get back together in the same room to build on the scenarios that we already developed. Slide. So we created an interest form and reached out to those members of the Futures Group and Futures Working Group, other DVRPC staff, our 15 standing committees, and other targeted contacts that would help make our new working group representative of the region. Next. We designed, you might have gone one too far. Yep, there we go. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Go one more. Looks like you're missing a slide of mine. So, or I'm missing something here. So anyway, this just tells you the breakdown of interest or areas of expertise for those members of our working group. So they range in expertise from architecture and urban design, climate change, equity and environmental justice, public health, supply chain logistics, and technology. So we really try to get a real breadth of expertise in our group. Next slide. So we designed worksheets that directed groups to self-facilitate. They assigned a timekeeper, a recorder, a facilitator, and then progressed through the questions on their own within their groups. And we adapted versions for printing in person. So we had people joining us at the office here at DVRPC, and also using Google Docs for those who were going to join us remotely via Zoom. So everybody recorded their conversations as data for us to collect in their worksheets, and we were able to collect them in real time. Next slide. So we hosted 2 workshops that followed a similar format. The first workshop asked groups to review headlines from our Dispatches from Alternate Futures report and add them based on recent events, and then reflect on the challenges and opportunities in each scenario. And then the second workshop got to the main goal of this update, which was identifying adaptive strategies for each scenario. And then we asked the groups to budget transportation investments for each. So the results are posted on our Futures Group page. You can find that and our plan page at the top of this slide. And there you can sign up to stay up to date with other activities related to our current long-range plan update. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jackie. All right, let's talk a little bit about having a safe workforce along with an inclusive workforce with Scott Brailsford with the Missouri DOT. Scott, you're up.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Scott Brailsford. I'm the Urban Traffic Supervisor for the Missouri Department of Transportation. And as he said, I'm over signing and striping, signals and lighting. And we'd had quite a bit of turnover, especially when COVID came along. We were trying to work through things. And one of the number one core values of MoDOT is safety. So we were trying to figure out a way how to be able to get our employees trained where they are in a safe environment instead of going with a seasoned employee and learning out on the road in live traffic. So construction happened to have a project coming along in Liberty, Missouri, that there was nothing wrong with the equipment was there, but they were widening a bridge. They were taking everything down and putting all new back up. So I got a phone call one day and was asked what to do with it. And I realized we had a pretty large lot there. And I was like, you know what? Why don't we take that, set this up, and have a safe environment to train our employees? So setting the project up itself was a really great training place because we set a truss up there to show what it's like to put an overhead sign up across an interstate. We've got street lighting. We've got ped poles. We've got locating, fiber in the ground, detection, an area to stripe. So we got a really wide variety set up there. The nice thing is we can bring other districts in, let them use our facility for a day, train their employees. Again, it's a very safe environment. They can do the same thing as many times as they need to do it before they go out in a live environment and do it. This allows our engineers to come. We have a signal cabinet set up. They can program different types of programs to see how they run in the signal in the cabinet before they take it to a live intersection. And yes, they can do that in the office, but this is nice to be able to see the signals change, detection working. We've got it set up all 4 directions where vehicles can come through. We also work with our construction folks. So when a project's completed, we do an inspection. Well, the construction inspectors sometimes didn't know what we were looking for. Now we're able to bring them over here and show them, actually, here's what we're looking for. Here's the proper installation, and this is what we need. So it's really made a big difference. One of the things we're really looking forward to trying to do is have a job fair in Kansas City and let the public come down and actually see what we do, how big the signs are that we put up, the different types of signs we have, different ways that we put the signs up, and why we do this. It's great when kids come on Bring Your Child to Work Day and they see how tall a 3-section signal head is. So it's going to be great when we can just have a place for kids to come and have a school fair and come and be in a safe environment and see what we do. So hopefully it's a long-term plan to get more people involved in the Kansas City area to see what we actually do on a day-to-day basis and create opportunities for them. So it's a great training center to get new employees involved. And again, whether it's digging holes with the derrick digger, changing out a light bulb, changing from high pressure sodium to LED, whatever we're doing, we can do on this lot. So in conclusion, again, hopefully we can get the public involved in this, create more diversity, bring more diversity to our facility, and have everybody have a very safe environment to train before they actually go out on the road and do the work. So that sums it up.
All right. Thank you very much, Scott, and all of our Part A presenters of our showcase panel today. We have a couple minutes of a break coming up, so I'd like to see if there are any questions in the chat pod, and you can be brave and take yourself off of mute and ask a question as well. We have one for you, Scott, that just came in for Missouri. How easy was it to build a complete sign and lighting intersection on the parking lot? And is it easy to move around the state?
It's not mobile because we made it where it is for this lot, but it wasn't difficult. And it was actually kind of fun because, again, it gave us just reinstalling all of it was training for the employees. And we'd had some new employees, so they had never had the opportunity to see any of it. So it was a great project for them to learn and then to continue to be able to use for years and years and years.
All right, thank you. And Jen Harper says, congratulations, great job. Any other questions? Kelly also says, great job, Scott. All right, for New Jersey, and this is for you, Ted. Have you seen, after your engagement, have you seen kids and teens participating in your contest indicate to you that they possibly want to get into a transportation-related career?
That's a good question. The kids were certainly into it and weren't afraid to share their ideas. Based on the way they talked about certain transportation technologies, I kind of got the impression that they had already done quite a bit of research. So either they had natural interest in the topic and it was personal to them, because that came through very clearly in all the entries that we got. Either that or they do have career aspirations. We didn't measure whether that was something that they intended to do, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of these kids didn't end up being highly successful in transportation engineering, planning, and operating agencies as well.
Great. Thank you, Ted, and thank you for the question, Sarah. We'll give it another second or two to see if anyone unmutes or if we have anything else in the chat pod. And if not, we will move in just a couple seconds to the second half of our panel. And yes, good question. And we'll take this one and then we'll get back to the presenters. This is for Washington State. Jackie, what strategy did Washington State DOT use to roll out the pair? We may have lost Jackie temporarily. So we can look to get back with her. We will have time at the end of the session to ask questions. So we'll flag this one to go back to. All right. Thank you for your questions. And thanks again to our first group of great presenters and presentations. We're going to move now to, I believe it is Iowa. And my apologies for that. Valerie and Trish talking about the PIMA tool.
Good afternoon. My name is Valerie Brewer, and I'm one of 2 staff members in Iowa who handle public involvement for the state. In Iowa, we manage and facilitate all PI activities, and we're made up of 6 districts with over 114,000 miles of highway and over 24,000 bridges. So we were super excited to have just hired an intern, and we are now a team of 2.5. Before 2013, everything we did was on paper, including registration sheets and comment forms, and we always struggled to read the handwritten forms. Additionally, these documents had to be scanned and then shared with our planning staff. We looked at several off-the-shelf products and couldn't find one that met our needs, so we entered into a partnership with HNTB to build PIMA for us and with the intention to share it with other DOTs. When we do in-person public information meetings, we take iPads that allow our attendees to sign in from that particular meeting. We also offer them a QR code to sign in using their own cell phone. Every project also has a comment form where our stakeholders can either leave a comment or simply tell us if they're in favor, not in favor, leaning in favor, and etc. They can also subscribe to a project so they can be kept up to date. Additionally, they can watch a pre-recorded PowerPoints about the project. We also have the ability to create surveys with project-specific questions for our stakeholders to fill out. And when a stakeholder enters a comment into PIMA, our planners receive an email letting them know a comment has come in. Our planners can respond directly within PIMA, add attachments, and have numerous back and forth conversations. Each comment can be reviewed and responses can be personal, which helps build trust and promotes dialogue. The stakeholder database management allows us to sort by comments, attendance, filter by subscribers, district information, and event participation. And PIMA also allows us to send bulk emails, and we can see if they have been delivered, clicked on, opened, or bounced back to us. PIMA has a customized event management module that assists Trish and I in managing certain tasks leading up to a PI event. And here we can communicate items that have been checked off the list, including where we advertised, notifying of stakeholders, and uploading the YouTube videos. And speaking of Trish, I'm going to hand this off to her to speak about some other features of PIMA.
Hi, I'm Trish Miller, the second member on Iowa's public involvement team. I'm just going to jump in and pick up where Valerie left off. PIMA allows us the ability to evaluate our stakeholder feedback at the click of a button. We can see how many stakeholders we have, their favorability rating, number of comments, the type of stakeholders, as well as the number of attendees at each event. This module also gives us at-a-glance graphs, like the favorability index for a project, and the average response time from our planners to our stakeholders. Next slide. PIMA has a dashboard to analyze stakeholder data with maps and charts. We can review our stakeholders by comment location and identify gaps in outreach throughout the life of the project. Here, we can see what topics are most important to our stakeholders and geospatial comment spikes. Next slide. PIMA is a platform built by DOTs for DOTs who wish to manage their PI events in-house. Iowa is not the only agency using PIMA. Several other state DOTs have fully implemented PIMA into their public engagement practices. 15 other agencies have implemented PIMA into at least one of their projects. The DOTs at the top of this graphic, which are Iowa, Massachusetts, Maine, Wisconsin, and Texas, are part of a consortium. This consortium meets monthly and serves as a think tank to discuss our challenges, successes, and the future of virtual public involvement. By entering into a memorandum of agreement, agencies are able to share any technical enhancements made to PIMA. So if you build something new, you can share it with the consortium and in return, get new features. Currently, the consortium is in the infant stages of building an equity dashboard. Next slide. People rely heavily on their smartphones these days. There is an app for almost everything. Massachusetts DOT built REACH, which is a mobile application that stands for Real-Time Engagement and Communications Hub. Because of our memorandum of agreements, Iowa received REACH and implemented it in October of 2021. REACH allows users to view information and current and upcoming DOT projects, like and follow the projects, submit comments, register for in-person meetings, and participate in virtual meetings while on the go. Essentially, REACH is PIMA in your pocket. PIMA truly is our virtual assistant for managing public involvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie, and thank you, Trish. Our next presentation is on the Parklet Pilot Program from Maryland and Helen from the Dover-Kent MPO. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you very much. We are delighted to be part of this innovation group. For those of you who may not know, Dover-Kent County MPO is located in central Delaware. We are the proud home of the Delaware State Capitol. The county encompasses 586 square miles, 3 cities, 17 towns, and a population of 182,000 residents. Next, please.
So we're going to take kind of a leap and think that most of you know what a parklet is. However, if you don't, a parklet is when you take a parking space and you turn it from something very car-centric or oriented to just having your car there into an open public space that actual people can enjoy in all kinds of different ways. Next slide, please.
So what we really wanted to do was, like Helen said, we wanted to really try to get people thinking about using parking spaces in a different way and not just as a place to park cars. So our pilot program was a parklet pilot program in our service area, which is Kent County. This is a small scale, manageable approach to creating vibrant and healthy spaces for traffic calming, multimodal connections, economic development, etc. And so the deliverables for us at the MPO were, first, we purchased a mobile parklet that we could take to events, meaning that municipalities could try it out and they could get some feedback. We also developed a mini grant program, which would allow up to $3,000 reimbursement for purchase of equipment, site preparation, et cetera. We did require, however, that if a municipality was going to apply for the mini grant program, that certain transportation use requirements had to be met, and those were specified on the application form. We also developed a how-to guide that is very Kent County. It can apply to anywhere, but we try to pay particular attention to Kent County so that we could provide assistance to small communities that had limited capacity, basically helping them so they didn't have to start from a blank page. And then lastly, our staff would provide technical assistance to municipalities every step of the way. Next, please.
So where have you seen the parklet? We got to go to a lot of our municipalities and all 3 of our major cities in Kent County. We did everything from like First Friday kind of things to town fair kind of things. Next slide. We put up the how-to guide, and that, as Marilyn said, that guide is everything from the very beginning, how to create and design your parklet, all the way up to possible ordinances, sample ordinances, and things to actually get it on the books so that people could actually have and enjoy parklets in the municipalities. Next slide. So you can see on our table of contents, we go, like I said, from what is a parklet, benefits, all the way down to sample policy language and contacts for further assistance. We really did promise to hold your hand from the beginning to the end, and I believe that we did that. I really do. We took people from the very beginning all the way up. Next slide. So the mini grant program is it's a one-page, very simple application. You do have to show that you are going to improve safety for pedestrians and bicyclists. That was a big thing. Multi-use spaces for pedestrians, provide bike-friendly amenities, create traffic calming, serve as a multimodal access point, accommodate unmet demand for public space, expand seating capacity and public space on a given street, reduce congestion on narrow sidewalks, and encourage revision of the roadway. Next slide.
So we've got a lot of questions about what was the budget for this and was it really manageable? And as you can see from this slide, it was very manageable. So our mobile parklet, which you saw on the previous slides, how it was set up, our mobile parklet cost about $2,000. And that included a cafe table with 2 chairs, a bench, some artificial turf that's the size of a parking space, a jute rug, also some safety delineator posts so that people could be safe, feel safe in a parking space, artificial greenery, a literature rack, a sandwich board, and games. So that was a pretty comprehensive parklet for $2,000. The remaining budget was mostly allocated for MPO staff to take the parklet to various community events, develop the how-to guide and the mini grant programs, and provide technical assistance. You see the lion's share of the budget there is actually to provide the mini grants, which were calculated at up to $3,000 per municipality and also the county. And so that makes up a very manageable budget. Next slide. Here are some references. So you can access the Parklet Pilot Program, you can access the how-to guide, you can access the mini grant program, all on the website. And then Helen also developed a couple of YouTube videos as well. Next. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, we have come to, this will be our final STIC Showcase presentation of the year, and it's going to be from North Carolina DOT. Kelly Wells.
Great. Can you hear me, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay,
great.
Fantastic. All right, great. Well, folks, I would like to share with you our 511 live call center here in North Carolina. I'm Kelly Wells. I'm the State Traveler and Information Engineer in our Traffic Operations Group. Next slide. And I'll say I do have limited pictures. I'm not allowed to bring my phone into the prison, so I don't have a lot of graphics, so you'll have to use your imagination. But I'll give you a little backstory on our Traveler Information Program. We established our website back in 2000, and then like most states, we decided to go with a 511 phone system in 2004. We used an interactive voice recognition system, an IVR, that most of you are familiar with. And the good news of our system was that it allowed peak call volumes for things like hurricanes and snowstorms. It worked really well, handled lots and lots of calls. The downside side was that callers were often frustrated by the menus and the prompts. So I listened to many, many calls, and you would not believe, we could do a whole session on some of the things I heard. But at the end of the day, people were frustrated with the system that we had built for them. So we began to evaluate the IVR solution and look at the cost benefit and just how users were feeling about the system. Next slide. So in parallel, back in 1989, the North Carolina Department of Commerce Travel and Tourism Division had created a call center at the North Carolina Correctional Institute for Women. I'll call it NCCIW, or the Women's Prison. And they created that call center to answer questions about travel and tourism in North Carolina. So I came to DOT in 1999 on the just 2 days or 3 days after I got here. We had a massive hurricane, and we answered calls all week long, all weekend long for several weeks. And when the call volume finally slowed down, our customer service manager walked into an old dusty closet and flipped a switch. And I said, "Now, what is that?" And she said, "Well, on the weekends during emergencies, we can send our calls to the women's prison, and they answer the calls when there's a big event that lingers over a weekend." So this was 20 something years ago. And I thought, that's really cool. Somebody must have taken a great leap of faith in state government to have our calls answered at the women's prison. But I loved the idea, and I kept it in the back of my head for many, many years. Next slide. So fast forward to 2016, and we're considering the future of our 511 system and our IVR. And we decided to join that leap of faith and route our 511 calls full-time to the women's prison in South Raleigh. We turned off our IVR in 2017, and the operators use a firewalled version of our drivenc.gov website to answer travelers' calls. People love speaking to a live person. Our demographic is typically 60 plus years old, are the folks that typically call 511. So they love having a live person to talk to. They have often asked our operators why Virginia and Georgia and South Carolina don't have live people to talk to as well. So in 2019, we had some budget troubles here at NCDOT, and we decided that another thing we could do to cut costs would be to move our entire customer service function over to the prison as well. They had done such a great job answering 511 that we have a department-wide customer service number. It's really more like a switchboard. It's a number where people call in and say, "Hey, my ditch is backed up," or "Hey, I want to know about some right-of-way issue," or "Hey, I want to know anything you can imagine about DOT," but they don't know where to call. So these operators actually serve as a switchboard, just routing callers. Sometimes they can answer the question, but most often they just route the caller based on their question to the appropriate NCDOT office that can handle their call. Now, we have 10,000 employees at our DOT, so there's lots of offices, and they've learned what kind of calls are handled by what kinds of offices. So in terms of volume, we get about 25,000 511 calls a year when we don't have a big emergency. We get 35,000 customer service calls. I mean, we get them day in and day out. People are calling for random DOT questions. And we spend about $80,000 a year to cover both of those systems operating at the prison. Next slide. So those are the facts on paper. The cooler stuff is really the backstory that I'll share with you. It is the best job in the prison. It is the only job that has both carpeting and air conditioned, but the standards are very high. So there are absolutely no infractions at all. I've had really, really good operators. And when I've gone back, they've been gone. And I've said, "Well, what's happened?" And they said, "Well, they got in a scuffle in the lunch line." And that's it. It is a very coveted job at the prison. And so the standards are very, very high. No disciplinary actions to work in the call center. I do go over 2 to 3 times a year, and I put a smiley face and a frowny face because being in the prison is a heavy feeling. And I have to really kind of psych myself up to go over there. And I have to walk through the entire prison campus to get to the call center. And it's hard, just to be honest. It's a hard place to go. But I know when I go into the call center, the women are excited to see me. I can call them by name. I can tell them we appreciate them and thank them for the work that they do. And just a little personal story to end with. There was a time after Hurricane Florence where they had taken, 10,000 calls. And one of the inmates said, we really love this because we've done things to wrong society. And this is a way that we can really give back. So that's what makes me enjoy this part of my job. I say oftentimes this is kind of the coolest thing about what I do. And I'm just thankful that someone took a leap of faith in state government and opened the door and we were able to follow suit. That's it, Jeff.
All right, Kelly, thank you so much. And I would want to thank everybody who has presented so far and would welcome all of our presenters to come back on camera, if you wouldn't mind, to see if we have any questions since our intermission. And it looks like they have come in. All right. Unfortunately, I still do not see Jackie Bain, but we have other questions for other panelists. I think the first one I will say will go to Iowa. You mentioned a future diversity or equity dashboard as part of the PIMA program. And what types of information are you planning to capture in this dashboard?
It's going to be engagement data compared against key project demographics. So we're going to look at each project and their demographics. We're going to use the census tract data, and we're going to use it to identify gaps happening in our engagement and what our priority populations or communities should be.
Okay, Valerie, thank you. Next question. With COVID being over, has there been some resistance to parklets or a push to turn some back to the parking spaces that they originally were, for the ones that were parking spaces, of course? And I'm seeing no.
And the parklet doesn't have to be permanent. So if they choose, they can put in a temporary parklet. And then if they need the parking for a special event or something, they can take it up, but no, nothing.
All right. And then I see right after this, are parklets intended to be permanent, temporary, or both?
You can do a permanent. About that, DelDOT was very, very specific about the fact that even if something was called a permanent parklet, it needed to be able to be removed for maintenance, emergency services, something like that. So even the most permanent parklet could be removed, and the parklet how-to guide talks about that. So it can be as permanent or as mobile, just like ours. We put it in the back of an SUV, we take it, we put it out. When the event's over, we pack it back up and we bring it back to the office. So it can be anywhere in between.
All right, thank you. And Scott and Anthony, thank you for the questions for our friends in Delaware. Anwar's here, and I'm seeing some come up from North Carolina. Loves this program. Are the calls monitored for quality, the customer service calls?
Yes. So the Department of Commerce has an employee supervisor there, and she can listen into any calls, and she does at random during the course of the day.
Okay, thank you. And a comment from Scott, out of the box thinking and a great use of state resources. And this is related to the quality. Are the calls monitored by the prison? And if so, do the callers know that they are calling a prison?
Great question. We get that a lot. The calls are not monitored by the prison. There are guards as you walk into the call center. You have to walk by a guard after you've gone through many, many metal detectors and all kinds of things to get in there. But the folks don't know they're calling a prison. Every once in a while, there'll be a story in the newspaper here about the fact they're calling a prison. And then people will call in and say, are you really a prisoner? And they say they're not allowed to give their names. They say, I'm operator 6. And if someone pushes them, they transfer the call to a supervisor. They don't ever give out their names.
Okay. We have a few minutes left to go, everybody. So we still have some time for questions. I guess the question I might ask of Kelly, back to you again, your last one up, so you're getting you're getting peppered here a little bit, but how you mentioned your training a couple times a year. What does all of that entail? I mean, do you keep them up to date with changes organizationally with NCDOT and anything they need to know just so they can best field calls? Is there more to it than that?
Yeah, oftentimes it's really more on the 511 side. I'll share with them new things we've added on our website, and they'll give me a list. They're great at giving me a list when I go over there. I come home with a long list of things that like. I always say they're the power users of our website. So we try to incorporate some of their requests every time we do a new release. And so I train them on new features of the website. They actually have done a fantastic job. They just use the DOT directory, and I've taught them what all the different offices do. And so my next training, they asked me to review all that. We haven't reviewed it in a few years since before COVID. I couldn't go over during COVID. I did a couple Teams trainings, but that's what I'll do the next time I go over. We'll just hit. I mean, there's probably 40 offices on the DOT webpage, and they have a pretty good understanding of what, and some of them have obscure names, and they've done a really good job. And sometimes they'll tell me, hey, we found a better number. Is it okay if we give out this number instead of that number? And I'll research it and I'll say, yeah, you're exactly right. So they're very diligent, very, very diligent.
Very cool. Thank you. And a shout out to you from Kayada Parker. Great presentation. Way to go. And we're going to go back to Dover Valley, please. Any advice to any organization wanting to try scenario planning exercise for the first time? Is Jackie still with us? Is either Jackie still with us? All right, we will have to follow up with Jackie from Delaware Valley. Anwar says that all are great innovations, right? Low budget, highly impactful. Congratulations to all on implementing such great ideas. And once again, for sharing them with us and each other. Panelists, do you have any questions of each other while you have a couple more minutes to spend with each other today?
Jeffrey, this is Ted at the NJTPA here in North Jersey. Regarding Sarah's question to Delaware Valley regarding scenario planning, we had previously done some work like that for our previous long-range plan. And one bit of advice, if I could give it, would be to keep it extremely simple, the language. Make sure you're not talking like a planner. To do that, I would suggest running it by somebody not from your agency, either a technical advisory committee made up of people in the community from a diverse background. Because a lot of times when you run stuff like that by folks like that, the first thing they'll tell you is, we don't understand what this is. This doesn't make sense. This sounds like a government agency versus sounding like somebody from the community. So sure. I would suggest that as one possible strategy.
All right. Thanks for that feedback, Ted. Appreciate that. Another thank you all from Sal or Say. I'm afraid my eyes are starting to go a little bit at the end of the day here. Jackie, welcome back. You might have our last question, which was actually the first question, how Washington State DOT rolled out the PAIR playbook and materials.
Yeah, so how has or has?
How has?
Okay, we actually, so there's the governor's requirement that we have a pro-equity, anti-racism plan and playbook. And that requirement came in, I want to say the plan was due around September timeframe. Same time that our DEI plan was scheduled to be due. We had about a 3 to 4 month window to create the PAIR plan, and we've been working on our DEI plan for about a year and a half. So what we did was we've made our DEI plan basically is our PAIR plan. It covers a lot more than the equity anti-racism plan, because the PAIR plan itself only really asked for 3 elements, and we had about 50 pages of stuff. So we shifted it and molded it, and that's currently with the Office of Equity for review. But what we have, again, it's just a little bit more broad because we have been working on this for quite a while.
Okay. All right. Thanks. And welcome back, Jackie. And we just have another minute or so left. And so this might be our very, very last question of the summit. For Missouri, if Scott is still here, any notable feedback that you would have received from the staff who were fortunate enough to use the SAFE training site? I don't see or don't hear Scott, so we'll have to follow up with him on that. No Scott. All right. Well, I think we're going to call that a wrap for the 2023 STIC Showcase. So let's give virtual hands clapping for our great panelists today. Thank you. You deserve a big round of applause. And remember, if you want to learn more about what you heard today or about any of the other posters you would have seen over the past 2 3/4 days, take down the contact information, network, make a new colleague, make a new connection, make a new friend in the world of transportation. All right, we will call it good. Top of the hour, we'll have our final breakouts. I am Jeff. Have a great afternoon, and thanks for joining us today. Goodbye.